Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone for attending one of our lunch and learn sessions. Today's topic is about SolidWorks custom properties and taking a new approach starting this new year into how we look at properties and what we can do with those properties. A couple of housekeeping issues before we get into the content. If you do have questions, please post them in the chat section. In the question section of the GoToWebinar window. I will not be looking at the chat section, but we'll probably table most questions to the end of the session and get those answered before we shut down. Couple of poll questions that we have before I get started today, because the topic is related to custom properties. I want to kind of get an understanding of who's using them and who's not. They're a part of the software that's really integrated into a lot of different areas, and the opportunity to utilize them to do a lot of different things is there. So first poll that I have is just to find out who's using custom properties in SolidWorks. So if you go ahead and vote there on your screen, we'll get an idea of who's using them. I'm actually pretty surprised here. A good majority of the folks that are in the session are at least using custom properties in some way. That's actually fantastic. Hopefully today I'll be able to show you all the different ways that we can utilize these custom properties. So let me just show you the results on that so you can see what that looks like. So we have a few folks that are in here. Now this next one is really for the folks that said no. This is multiple choice, so you can pick any or all of these. But why aren't you using custom properties? They are kind of all over the interface. So if you're not using them, what would be your reasons why you wouldn't use them? Don't be shy. There's a few of you out there. Nobody's going to know who you are. Nobody's going to pick on you. Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and close, and we'll just share that information. It looks like at this point it's really coming down to an understanding of the techniques and having the time to be able to fill them out. And I think those go hand in hand here. There's some tools that might make it easier for you to fill them out, to make yourself more consistent if we do understand and learn all these techniques. So we'll go ahead and get started today. So as I said, our topic, I called it SolidWorks Property Renovations, the home renovation craze that's going on today. If we can look at how we might be able to change the way we deal with custom properties in the new year, how do I manage them? How do I use them? Some of this stuff is going to be basic for folks that have been doing this for a while, but we're going to start to get into some of the tools that you can use downstream as we get through the presentation today. So to start out, how do we add custom properties? What are custom property files? And this tool called the Property Tab Builder, a way of creating an interface to be able to insert custom properties into your SolidWorks models, but whether they be part, assembly, drawing. So first of all, custom properties are found under File Properties in SolidWorks. Really all it is metadata. It's a Windows tool that's been around for a long time. It's metadata so that you can give extra information about each particular file. But SolidWorks has went on and given us access in many different areas to this information. Now under File Properties, we have kind of a table-like interface that allows us to fill out property information. And you probably noticed, for those of you who have been in there, you have a pull-down menu that has a list of items that you can fill out, or I can type a custom property in there if I like. Now that list is actually driven from this button here. You can see if I select Edit List, it brings up a tool that allows me to add to that list. Instead of just being able to type in, it will now show up on all of the files that I have. Now, in your installation directory, this is nothing more than a text file. This interface here is a tool to fill out the information within that text file. So if you wanted to, we could go to the text file and just copy and paste all of my information into that text file to fill it out. So very basic. It's just a nice little interface for being able to fill those out. And we're going to go into much more detail as to the interaction to this. But something a lot of folks are using lately for filling out custom properties is a custom property tab. If you look off to the task pane, one of the last items on the task pane is titled Custom Properties. And if I expand that out, if you don't have the tool set up, it may just look like this. It doesn't have a property page for assemblies in this case. However, let me just open a part file here. I do have one set up for that. If we open a part file, you can see I have an interface built specifically to allow me to enter custom property information. Notice it's also done some pre-work for me. It automatically pulled my material and my weight. This is a great way of entering custom property data. So I want to show you a little more about that. In your SolidWorks Start menu, you're going to find a tool under SolidWorks Tools called the Property Tab Builder. Now that's what allows you to build this interface that you're seeing. The one that I'm showing you is straight out of the box from SolidWorks. So just to give you an idea how this works, we're really not talking about this tool and functionality more than how do we enter data. But first of all, you have to specify, is this for parts, assemblies, drawings, or specifically to welded structures inside of SolidWorks. And you group items together within the system. So let's say in the first one I want a series of radio buttons. The radio button may say design type. And what is the custom property that's going to be driven inside the files themselves? Maybe we just call this type in this case. How many items do I want in the radio buttons? And maybe we want to put, this could be a sheet metal part, or it could be a weldment. And if I select either one of those, what do I want the custom property to be? In this case, maybe sheet metal. And here we can call this weldment. So very simple. You build this interface using this tool. You can add as many group boxes that you want, name the group boxes. You can add lists and check boxes. And you'll also notice that you can make, when I was in the radio buttons, you can use the radio buttons to turn on and off other fields. So you can make things be visible or not visible based upon your selections. Now, doing that gives you the ability to create an interface that looks very similar to what I have here. So some of them are linked to SolidWorks properties like SolidWorks Material and SolidWorks Mass. Some of them are just linked to specific custom properties, and some of them are actually linked to text files. Those text files are just located in a particular location on your machine or out on the server, and you set a path to them. So Property Tab Builder, I already got a question, I'll take this right now. How do you get to this Property Tab Builder? Just so everyone's aware, if you go to your Start menu in Windows and you browse to your SolidWorks installation, under SolidWorks Tools, that's where you'll find the Property Tab Builder. So this is another method, and I truly believe, setting something like this up makes it easier to answer some of these questions of why not. How do I enter them easily and consistently to make things work? Okay, now to actually enter properties, I'm just going to fill in some fluff in here. But you're using this interface to set the information, pull down menus. There could be date fields. Okay, and when you do that, that information now becomes part of that particular file. Sorry. Let's see here. Let's see. Got to apply those. I should have done that. And then they should show up in here. Yep, not working for me. Let's just try one of them. Hit it, apply part number, and if I go to File Properties, my part number does exist. Now, one of the conversations we're going to have as we go through here is the difference between these two tabs. You'll notice that the property did show up on another tab within the interface, and we will discuss that in full. So back to our tools for a moment. So we have ways of entering the data. It's fairly easy. But what are the different types of data that we have and some of the things that we can do? First of all, what is the difference between the custom tab and configuration specific? Also, people get confused, or what is SolidWorks special property and what does it mean for me? How do I create parametric properties, linking properties to physical dimensions within the model? One little tidbit that I found out there, hey, I want to create a 2-line custom property. How do I do that? I'll show you how to do that. And using some of the downstream tools once you have custom properties in there. So let's start out with that discussion between the custom and configuration specific. So everybody understands that SolidWorks can have configurations, correct? If we take apart, by default, it has a single configuration. We can add a second configuration. We'll call this item 12. And now I have 2 separate items in here. I'm just going to turn off my add in here, just so that doesn't annoy us. So when I'm adding properties, I can associate them with this version or this configuration or this configuration. And through the file properties, that's the difference between these 2 tabs. If I'm associating a property that's specific with one variation of my design, we're going to add it on the configuration specific tab. Okay, notice there's a pull down menu that says, okay, who am I adding this property to? The default or to item 12, which is my new configuration. Now, if I fill out the property under the Custom tab, any property located here is intended to describe every configuration there is. Okay, so for instance, there's a description in here titled jaw plate. You know, if there's 12 different configurations of this, but you describe them all the same way, like jaw plate, then you can put it under the Custom tab. If they each have their own description, maybe this is jaw plate 12-inch, then you would put it under configuration specific. So that is the difference between these 2 items. Now, I just want to make sure. SolidWorks special properties. Special properties are often accessed in a couple different ways. I usually see them most on a drawing. So for instance, if I'm in a drawing, and in this case, I'll place a note in here, and I'll go through this a little bit further. But in the note dialog, I have the ability to get to all of these properties that have this SW prefix. Now, when you hear someone say SolidWorks special property, what I want you to think about is just properties that SolidWorks calculates itself. It's not something that you fill in some sort of data. SolidWorks always has this information stored within the files, and you can get access to them. So this is one method of getting to those. You will see some of that when you get into the custom property window here, if I go to File Properties, when I go to add a property and I specify a type, under my value and expression, I can get to some of those special properties, things that SolidWorks calculates. So things like material, mass, density, volume, things that are available. So there's two different locations to get access to those particular types. Another one is parametric properties. So let's say we're working on a sheet metal part. This is often a popular example of where you might want parametric properties. A lot of people like to put their K factor or sheet metal thicknesses on their drawings. Well, if we were to go to our file properties, and let's say we created a property for thickness. So let's see here. One of the things with sheet metal parts now is there is a SolidWorks special property for thickness that will automatically extract it. If the model changes, it does show up here. But things like K factor, bend induction, bend allowance, you may want to link them to a dimension that's on the model. Now if I get that dimension, all I have to do is click on the evaluation box and then click on the dimension, and it will evaluate for that value. Now if you change the K factor in any way, it will update your parametric custom property. Okay, so there's ways of linking these to dimensional values that do exist. Two-line custom properties. This is kind of a little trick because you can't by default. If I go in here under File Properties, I can't actually come in here and type in two lines. You know, if I type in one line, if I try to hit Enter, it just evaluates it. If I hit my down arrow, it just goes to the next cell. So you can't really, in this interface, get a two-line note. However, if I were to just create a text file that has both lines, I can actually copy and paste it in here. Okay, it will look like it's a single line of text because only one will be showing. But if I were to create a drawing from this, do a C-size drawing, and we'll pop this on there. And let's go ahead and pop a note to it just so we can see what this is going to look like. Now when I go to link to that property there, I think I put it under description, you'll notice that both lines of text do show up with the same formatting that you had in the text file. So just a little tip there, if you ever did want to go that route, you could do so. Now another benefit, we're starting to end in the benefits of why do I do all this? You know, why fill out custom properties, configuration specific properties, and use SolidWorks special properties. The first one is your feature manager filter. I find that a lot of people don't even know that this is capable of doing this. So if I go to my SolidWorks assembly here, and I decide that I want to sort on a custom property, maybe that's material, anything you type into this filter here, if I just type in steel, it's going to filter the graphics area for anything. In this case, it's looking up the material or material properties, but notice it actually picked parts that don't have a material applied. The reason for this is it actually looks into the custom properties as well. Now this one, I'm not sure if this one will come up here if I have it filled out. But anything you type in here, notice I just typed in test. Well, none of those parts are named test. I actually just have a custom property I threw in some of these where I have data that it's filtering out from my assemblies. So there's reason number one to start using custom properties. If you know what type of information you're storing on the files, you can use it inside your assemblies to start to analyze and take a look at what you want to show and filter within that tree. And it's very easy to get back. You just delete what you've typed in. This will go ahead and reset your graphics area with all the components. Okay. Now, some other interaction or reasons why we would use custom properties. First of all, we can use custom properties in the BOM. I'm just going to really quickly show that. I want to talk a little bit more about custom properties in notes and how we do that linking. For those of you who haven't used it, the search tool can also search custom properties. It's not just file name. We can search on any of the custom properties that you would fill out. Some of you may have noticed you can actually link a balloon to custom properties, not just item numbers and quantities for bills of material. Maybe you want a description. Maybe you want material. I also want to talk a little bit about weldments and how weldments deal with custom properties as well. And we'll just touch real quickly on each of these. For the bill of material, if you have a BOM table and you decide to insert a column, when you insert that column, it asks you what do you want to link that column to. Now here's where you can get access to any of those custom properties. Notice that it's not just any typed in property like author, material number, but also any of the SolidWorks special properties. Maybe in this case I want to get an idea of the description. Now, some of the comments initially were, for the people not using is, well, I don't understand all the techniques. Well, what if I didn't use the property tab builder and I didn't go to file properties and I realized I got all the way to my bill of materials and I realized that I forgot a description? Well, the bill of material allows me to type in the value and it actually drives directly to the file and fills out the custom property for that file. Now let me explain what happened there when I double click the cell. It knows that this cell is linked to that part file to that custom property. It asks, do you want to keep the link or break it? Okay. And that's what this message does. If you keep the link, it will drive the values back in. So another great reason to use custom properties is our bill of materials allow us to get all that information summarized on a drawing. If I fill it out on the bill of materials, it drives it back to the individual components. A little bit with notes. You saw me add a note in there, but let's talk about some of the options within the note dialog. When I go to place a note, you want to just kind of move the formatting out of the way, and off to the left in the Note Property Manager is an icon. I wish it was different here. It's kind of buried in there. Some people just don't know it exists, but there's a link to property option. Now, this is where people get the most confused. Why is there 10 selections in here for me to link to a property? Well, it really comes down to deciding where that property comes from. Am I pulling the property from the current document, which is the drawing? Am I pulling it from the model in the view that it's attached to? I attached it to whatever this framework is for this piece of equipment. Or the model in view and sheet properties. I'll show you where that is in just a moment. That's actually specified when you create the sheet and you place a view. Or the component to which it is attached. Now this is the really neat thing that they've added in the past couple of years. If the property doesn't exist, for instance, I go to this pull down menu and the component it's attached to doesn't have finish. Well, I can actually do a couple things. I can hit the File Properties button, which goes to that part, to the custom property window, and now I can fill out something like finish, I can give it a value, okay, and now I can make the selection and say, yeah, I'm linking that to a finish, and it will link it up for me. Okay. My view just went out of date here. Let me let it update. So even though you may have forgotten something when you get to the drawing, you can link any of your notes in a drawing to those custom properties by using that technique. Searching. Let's do balloons first. Let's auto balloon this. And we're going to go over here to the side once it auto balloons. I'm using a fairly decent assembly for some of the other things that we're going to show here in a moment, so it's a little bit slow with GoToWebinar running. Once I have the balloon, I do have the ability to change the balloon settings. Now, one of those settings is balloon text. What you may not know is into the balloon text, we can link it to the custom properties. And maybe I want to put the description of this component in there. And that one happens to not have a description. Let's see if material. Let's try another one. All right. Let's see. We'll use some of the other, no, there's none of that. Well, you can get access to any of the properties. This happens to be a numeric property. I can then come in here and change. Okay, am I going to keep a circle? Am I going to put a box around it? How do I want it to fit? I want 2 characters, or do I want it a tight fit? And now I've created, an item that's linked to the bill of materials, but it's looking at the custom property information. So some of you may not have known that we can do that within balloons. Searching. The search window is found at the very top of your SolidWorks interface. If you look at it, it should just say either search for files and models, or I think the default is search commands. Well, if you set it to search files and models, that's great. By default, if you type something in here, let me type in some value, it's going to go search the locations that you specified. In this case, finding different things that have the number 260 on it. This one actually found a feature. This one found the name plus part number. So it searches within the custom property information as well. But let's say you wanted to search a specific custom property. Now, why this is a little bit different in the way that the names it is a little bit confusing, but if I go under here and say search keywords, and let's say I want to find one of the ones that I filled out that was titled test. Well, that was listed under stock size, and stock size isn't listed here by default. Well, I can pick any of these, but notice the formatting of what I have up here. It puts the property, then a colon, and then you type in what it is you're searching for. So let's say I wanted to search on stock size. Let me go ahead and delete this. Let's just set it to doc type for a moment. And now I just go through, and I'm going to remove doc type and put in stock size, making sure I type it the way that it was written. Okay, now hopefully this will do what I'm trying to do here. And then I just type in the value that I want it to search. In this case, stock size test. I tell it to search, and it actually looked through the custom properties called stock size for anything that had a stock size of that value. So one of the hidden gems is the fact that you can use your search tools to search all your files for those custom property specific information that you're looking for. Okay. A little bit on weldments here. I don't want to spend a lot of time. If we get into a weldment, I just want you to notice that the interface is a bit different for weldment files. If we open these up, and it creates a cut list here of different items in a weldment. When we go to File Properties, okay, it's still. Let me update this here for a moment. Go to Properties. Now the property window is a little bit different. You'll notice that I accessed it through my right-click menu on the cut list. And let me just confirm, if I go to File Properties, these properties are specific to the entire file. These properties are specific to each item in the cut list. Okay, so if I can't get to it, there we go. So it brings me to this window. Very similar to what we've been talking about as far as an interface, except it has some very specialized tools because we really have multiple items in this single part. So the first one is a cut list summary, where we can click on each item and fill out the properties. It works the same way. You got a pull down menu, you can link it to a property, you have SolidWorks special properties, you can link it to dimensions the same way. There is also a summary table, which I wish they had this for SolidWorks assemblies in this interface, but I can go ahead and pick on any of the properties and see how all my items, and if any of them are filled out. And then I have a look at what my table would look like if I created a cut list. But all of this is custom property technology. It's just filling out custom properties for the individual items. So cut lists follow the same scheme that parts, assemblies, and drawings do. Okay. Now, a couple tools that you, well, at least one tool that you may not be as familiar with. A few years back, they added a tool titled Define Title Block. Now, this coincides with the ability to create title block notes. You already saw me create a note linked to a custom property, but I want to go through that process with you for a moment. Once you do that and you use this tool called Define Title Block, we can use that to fill out custom properties in individual files. You're probably already filling out your title block, and hopefully you're doing that through custom properties. But what if I could fill out the title block on the title block and have it drive the part file as well? So this is one thing we might want to change going forward. So if I look at my sheet here for my large piece of equipment, you'll notice that my title block has several fields that I would traditionally fill out. Now, in order to get to the setup of this, we have to right-click in the graphics area and get to the sheet format. Now, this is not news. I showed you that we have the ability to create a note, link it to a property, specify what the property is I'm linking to, let's say author, and when that property is filled out, it will show up in that location. Now, what you may not know about is we have a way of setting up the title block so that you can fill out the data in the title block and it drives to the parts or assemblies. You can also control the order in which you can tab through them. So how do I get to that? Well, if you're in the sheet format, if you right-click, there's going to be an option called Define Title Block. Or you can just go to the Property Manager, right-click, and select Define Title Block. Now, what this does is it brings up all of the note boxes that have been placed on the title block, all the text fields. You can then select them in the order that you want to edit them. In this case, let's say I'm going to leave material to make sure it's specified in SolidWorks. I want to specify finish. I want to specify the process. I want to fill out that one, part number, description, and then my new field that we selected up here, which isn't allowing me to select it, but I pick them in the order that I want to fill them out. I can also, as I'm selecting the fields, give them a separate tooltip. So as I mouse over them, they might ask the user for information or say something more logical to that user. Now, what's this going to look like or feel like to you? If I go back to Edit Sheet and I come over to the title block now, notice my symbol on my cursor is going to be a little bit different. Okay, this is to let me know the title block has been defined. I would do this on a template to make it easier, but when you do perform this function, now when I double click, any fields that I've specified as a title block field now show up in a different color. So let's say I'm filling out finish. I can type in my finish, whatever that property needs to be, and if I hit tab, it will take me to the next one in order, the way I specified it in the title block. So you no longer have to edit the sheet format to fill out a note. If you're using custom properties, you don't have to go to the part or assembly in the custom property to fill it out. You can use the define title block to do this, and there's really no reason not to do it, especially if these properties are coming from part or assembly locations. It's another easy method for adding custom properties. Okay, so define title block. Just to show one more time, if you right-click on sheet format, okay, there's your edit title block, or if you're editing the sheet format, okay, you'll find it on your right-click menu. Should have been there. Well, I guess after the first time it kind of does just reside over here. Anyhow, great tool. A couple things in assemblies that we can use custom properties for. One is called Advanced Select. It's been there for a lot of years, but it can utilize custom properties. The other is Assembly Visualization. Both can be used to sort and select within your assembly. So let's go to our assembly file for a moment. And let's use our advanced select techniques. So advanced select would be for me to sort through the assembly to find any components that meet a certain criteria. Now this differs from the filter in the feature manager because I can set multiple criteria. Okay. How do I get to advanced select? Well, we're all familiar with the select arrow on our standard toolbar. That's what we always have pretty much for our cursor. If you pull down that menu, there you'll have a bunch of selection tools. A lot of these are predefined, but at the very bottom you'll find Advanced Select. So Advanced Select is your advanced component selection. Now you create the search criteria. I can say, you know what, I want you to find a custom property, stock size, where the condition. Now the conditions are very different than the filter. Is it equal to? If it's a numerical value, is it greater than or less than or contains? In this case, contains test, and I can go ahead and apply. And if I did this right, it should go ahead and find the part. Now notice in the background, it selected those two paddles that we had that property on. Now let's say this is something that you're going to use all the time. Well, you can physically name the search. Okay, I can call this a test search. And then I have a little save function here. Now, that being done, I can now go over this manage searches, and it shows all the ones that I've saved, and I have an option to add those to the favorites. Okay, now when I close this out, I can now go to the pull down menu, and you'll notice that my search is there. The great thing is it's searching your custom property information for that particular value. Now notice in here, I want to go back to my search for a moment. Select it. I can add multiple criteria. So search for a custom property that contains text, and then also search where anything where the part volume is greater than such and such, or on another custom property. So the selection can be quite unique here. Now what I do with that once they're selected, well, I can just invert selection and then hide all the other components. So what's showing is just the paddles. But all of this is made possible through custom properties. The other tool, which is a fantastic tool that a lot of people are not aware can take advantage of custom properties, is assembly visualization. For those of you who don't know what assembly visualization is, it's found on the Evaluate toolbar. It's part of standard SolidWorks. It allows you to get a proper look into your entire assembly. Now, this tool gives you sorting capability. By default, it uses file name, quantity, and mass. I can pick on the header, and it will sort on that particular item. But the reason I bring it up in this context is because we can also view custom properties out of this window. So if I wanted to add a column, let's say, if I click on the small little arrow here next to mass, I can go ahead and add a column. Now that just adds another column, same as mass. But now if I click that arrow for that column, there's a button in here for more. And I can physically select any of the custom properties. So for instance, one of my custom properties might be material. So show me all the materials that are specified, you know, in my parts. And as I scroll down through here, you can see, let's make this a little wider, you can see which components have the material specified within the assembly. The neat thing is about this is assembly visualization allows you to fill out the property right from this window. So if I want to put in aluminum 6061, it's actually going to drive this value back to custom properties. Again, when you talk about the ease of filling out custom properties, I've already given you the custom property interface, the custom property tab builder, the title block, and now assembly visualization as tools that you can use to fill these out. My personal opinion, you're going to use a combination of all of them. If you get them all set up properly, it isn't going to matter where you fill them out. Now, once you have them filled out, you can now sort on everything that is using a particular material. So now I have all my T6 in here. At the top of assembly visualization, if I go to the top of here, there's a rollback bar. I can actually use that bar, scroll down with the bar to where 6061 started, and at the bottom of the interface is another bar. And I can use that to roll all the way up to where we had it. So, getting there. And what that does is it will filter the graphics area, and there's all my parts made out of that particular material. Okay. If I were to right-click on them, we can right-click on the bars themselves. If I can get to it here. Roll to top, and this one should be the roll to end or roll to the bottom, and it will show my graphics information as well. Now we can also start to color code the information that I'm sorting on custom property wise. If I click the little color chart off to the left, what this does, it uses a color bar that sorts by in this case by material, and it puts like colors on materials that are very similar, okay, in the formatting of the column. Now, if I wanted to group any identical items with the same color, there's a command if you right-click on the bar called Group Identical, and now in this case all of my plain carbon steel is one color. All of my items that don't have any material are in red. Okay, all the yellow ones are my T6. So I'm able to sort that data pretty easily. Now I also have the ability here to save that as a display state and use that later. But the real trick here is I can use assembly visualization to fill out custom property information. So it gives you another interface for being able to do that. Another way of filling out custom properties, more from an IT, a high-level perspective. Let's say you had a bunch of files that you needed to fill out a particular property to. Maybe you wanted to fill out purchase versus made property within the files themselves. Inside the task scheduler is a tool to update custom properties, to either change or add custom properties to existing files. If you go to the Start menu, All Programs, under SolidWorks, SolidWorks Tools, you'll find your task scheduler. Now when you launch your task scheduler, it has a bunch of different tasks. We're looking for the Update Custom Property task. Well, I can tell it what file I want to update the properties on. I'm just going to pick a part file here. You tell it what time to start the task. You can schedule it for night or another day. But when I go to the next screen, I can specify which custom properties to add or modify. So if I wanted to fill out finish on this part, I want it to be a text field, and this is what I want it to be and what configuration it's for. When this task goes off, it's going to go through any file I've specified, and it's going to fill out this property information and update it as a schedule. So 1:48 p.m. on this date, so this afternoon it will automatically go through and do that for us. Now, where I would use this would be if you're creating a standard library. You might want to have a property in your standard library so you can use either your feature manager filter or your sorting or your assembly visualization to filter out everything that's a library part. You know, we have that for Toolbox today. There's a custom property called isFastener within those that allows you to sort those. But this tool is going to run and it's going to fill out that custom property data or change custom property data for you. Okay, so you may not have been aware that was in there. And the last thing I wanted to bring up is something out of the core bit of SolidWorks. But this is kind of where the future is when it comes to users of SolidWorks that are creating a lot of data over time. It gets to the point where you need to create or use a document management system. The great thing is all that data that you put into the custom properties is absolutely going to help you when you go forward. Inside of Enterprise PDM, which most of you have heard about, they have something called data cards. Now, data cards are fantastic because the first thing they do when you place a file in is they look into SolidWorks and they pull any of the custom properties that match the fields on the data cards. So everything that we're talking about today, all of the properties and methods of filling that out can help you to fill out these data cards or interfaces within Enterprise PDM, and they all become searchable. Okay, so these are all downstream utilization of custom properties that you might use in the future. So I just wanted to bring that up as kind of a little blurb. We're kind of at the end of the lunch and learn. That's all I had to show, but I want to get through some questions here. We got quite a few. First one, with the pull down menus, what if ours is blank? Where can we find the default menus? So in the, let's just use this one here. In the file properties, if this is blank, then chances are your software is not looking at the proper text file behind the scenes. So what you want to do is go to your Tools options under File Locations, and you're going to find one called a Custom Property File. Now I have a custom location for mine, but there's a text file in your installation directory. And if you want to send me an email afterwards, I can give you the specific location. But you want to make sure this is pointing to that custom property text file. It's in your SolidWorks install directory. And that's what, anytime you edit the list through here, that's what it's editing, is physically that text file. So chances are that would be why it's blank. Can the defined title block be saved as part of the drawing template? Absolutely. Next question, with assembly visualization, what happens if the custom property is not in every part file? It just shows up as blank. It doesn't have to be already defined in that file. So let's say I had the material or description and never put it into the file. It will physically fill it out in those individual files. Okay, it doesn't matter if it currently exists or it doesn't. If you fill it out there, it's going to exist in those files. Okay, it's another method of filling those out. Next one, when you specify a material in assembly visualization, does it have to be a SolidWorks standard library material? That's a good question. Let's go back to that just for a moment. Now, there's a couple ways of using this material. I actually have this looking to a custom property of material. However, in this property window, there's a special property for SolidWorks material. What this is looking is to whether or not you've specified a material in the material library selection. So hopefully I didn't confuse you there. One method, I was looking just to custom properties. So go to each part file and see if the user has specified a custom property for a material. This method says, see if they've defined a SolidWorks material. Okay, and this list is going to be a little bit different. Okay, let's open up a part just so I can illustrate the exact difference here. So one method is using, is it defined here? The other method is it defined in here? So in here, I don't have a custom property for material. All I would have to do is specify material. I can type in my own material value, or I can link it to the SolidWorks material, which will give you the same value that's accomplished here. Last question, is there a quick reference cheat sheet available or Get Down to Business book available at cost? There is no reference. This is all coming from things that I've put together in research and just kind of gathering up all the different areas. However, this webinar will be recorded and it will be placed on our website probably before the end of the day today, and you can use that as reference. If you have any questions about anything I've shown, my email address is kevin@caddimensions.com. And I'll also plead to some of the folks here trying to set up different topics for the rest of the year. I generally come up with my own topics, but I would much prefer to be showing you things that you want to see. So if you have a topic suggestion, please send it to kevin@caddimensions.com, and I'll put it in my list of lunch and learns for this year. We're going to do most likely quite a few of them as we go forward in the new year. I hope everyone enjoyed it today. I hope going forward you'll at least take a look at using custom properties, because I know in the end the data management side of this is going to come at some point, and utilizing custom properties is just going to make that move so much easier for you, not only today but in the future. So I want to thank everyone for attending. We'll see you at the next Lunch and Learn. Take care.